Hello friends, now we are starting with our next topic, that is diuretics and antidiuretics. Okay, so basically this topic we are divided into three parts. The very first part, that is this presentation, we are dealing with the process of urine formation. Now next presentation after that we will do for the diuretics, and after that the third presentation we will go for the antidiuretics. So very first part we are starting with the process of urine formation over here, and the learning objectives for this that on the completion of these sessions the learners will be able to define the various terms which are related to the urinary system. Then they can enlist the various steps in urine formation. They can describe the process of urine formation. Then they can explain the mechanism of concentration and dilution of urine, how the urine is concentrated and diluted, and again they can explain the mechanism of the micturition. Okay, now you will immediately say, sir, this part we have already studied in the first year B Pharm, that is how the urine is formed and all these things. So this is not the way by which we are studying over here. This is entirely different kind of things which we are studying over here. The urine formation in terms of a pharmacology we are going to deal over here, in terms of how it is affecting your pharmacology, how it is used in the pharmacology. In that way we are studying over here. Now first, various terms which are used in the urinary system we will see. The very first term is bacteriuria, that is bacteria in the urine. Whenever there is a bacteria found in the urine, it is called as a bacteriuria. Diuresis means increased in the production of urine, the amount of urine which is increased, then it is called as a diuresis. Diuretics are the substances which are used to produce, or they are helping to produce, or they induces the diuresis. The diuretics are the substances which produces the diuresis. Then diuria, that is painful micturition. If there is a pain in the micturition process, then it is called as a dysuria. Hematuria is nothing but the blood in urine, occurrence of a blood in the urine. It is called as a hematuria. Then excessive urine production is called as a polyuria. Then high level of urea in the blood or in the urine, it is called a uremia. The next term is glomerulonephritis, that is inflammation nephritis. That is nothing but the inflammation of a glomerulus, damage to the filtration membrane, and increase in the permeability, which is ultimately leading to the polyuria. Then next term is urine analysis, that is analysis and of the urine for the diagnostic purpose, so that the health and disease status can be identified. So these are the various terms. These are not only the terms, there are many terms which are over here, but these are the few terms which are coming across very occasionally over here. Then whenever we'll see the steps of urine formation, we have already studied this in the first year, that there are three steps of urine formation: glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. In between that, as far as the pharmacology is concerned, we have added one more step, that is concentration, water reabsorption by osmosis pressure. So glomerular filtration we are knowing very well. Small molecules are filtered through the glomerulus. Then molecular, which are smaller than plasma proteins, they are also secreted through this. So this is nothing but the glomerular filtration. Tubular reabsorption process, where the nutritional molecules or molecules which are essential for our human body, they are reabsorbed, like glucose, amino acid, creatinines, and salt. They are reabsorbed. So all these are nothing but our APH terminology. In detail we are studying in further also. Proteins, they are absorbed by pinocytosis. Charged ion and chemicals are absorbed by attraction forces. Then there is a process of concentration and dilution of urine by reabsorption and osmosis process, and there are processes by which the waste and harmful substances are secreted by the active process, which is also called as a tubular secretion process. Now very first step we will see over here is the glomerular filtration. Now in studying the glomerular filtration, we have to see over here what are the various forces and the pressures which are applicable over here. In first year only we have already seen that there is a difference in between the arterial difference in between the afferent artery and efferent artery. We can see here the afferent artery is bigger in diameter than that of efferent artery. There is a diameter difference, and this diameter difference create a hydrostatic pressure in the glomerulus, and this hydrostatic pressure, which is around 55 mm of Hg, which is created, and this is hydrostatic pressure which is created due to glomerular blood into the glomerulus by the difference in the diameter of the arteries. But this is not only the pressure by which the glomerular filtration taking place. There are also opposing forces to it. Opposing means which reduces the glomerular filtration. It is not the 55 mm of Hg. It is just a 10 mm of Hg by which the glomerular filtration takes place. What are the opposing forces over here is the capillary hydrostatic pressure, that is reverse pressure which is generated over here. Okay, so which pushes some of the liquid which is from the glomerulus back to the blood. And there is another force which is called as osmotic colloidal pressure, colloidal osmotic pressure, which is around 13 mm of Hg, and the capillary hydrostatic pressure is 15 mm of Hg. So total around 45 mm of Hg pressure is a reverse pressure, opposing pressure, which is to the glomerular filtration pressure. So if you see, that is a net filtration pressure over here. It is a 55 minus this 15 minus this 30, around 10 mm of Hg. So against this 10 mm of Hg, the glomerular filtration is taking place. So here we can say the green arrow. So net filtration which is taking place across the glomerulus is by the 10 mm of Hg, not by the 55 mm of Hg. 55 mm is actually in the glomerulus due to the difference in between the afferent and efferent. There are many other factors also which will enhance or which will reduce this filtration pressure, and thereby they change the glomerular filtration rate. Okay. Then here are the factors which actually responsible for alteration of the glomerular filtration rate. So the glomerular filtration is regulated by different sympathetic nerves. Their activation and contraction and relaxation of afferent and efferent artery, which is also lead to the change in the GFR. Glomerular filtration rate is changed by the different ways, that is a sympathetic tone, and by that change in the sympathetic tone, the difference between the afferent and efferent artery has been changing, and due to change in the difference in artery, definitely the net filtration pressure will change and glomerular filtration rate will be changed. But these are the not only things. Okay, juxtamedullary apparatus secrete the vasoconstricting substance, which is also act on the afferent artery and change the GFR. The sympathetic nervous system is not only the factor, also the juxtamedullary apparatus also secrete the substance, vasoconstricting substance, which change the arterial diameter and change the GFR. Very well known thing, that is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Renin which is converted to angiotensin 1, which is then converted to angiotensin 2, and then angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstricting substance which releases aldosterone, and salt and water retention capabilities are changed, and these also changes the glomerular filtration rate. Now this factor makes this difference between afferent and efferent artery we have already seen in the first year BPharm. Amongst to that, the addition to that is the osmotic pressure in a glomerulus and net hydrostatic pressure. These are also difference between this also responsible for the glomerular filtration. So around 125 ml filtrate per minute has been formed in the glomerulus, but amongst that most of them is reabsorbed and not secreted as a urine over here. So these are the ways by which where glomerular filtration can be achieved. So these are responsible for the diuresis or anti-diuresis actions. So these are the factors. In first year we have already seen that afferent and change in afferent and different efferent arteries there, which is responsible, but not only, these are the other factors also. So how the osmolarity in the nephron is there? we can see that the fluid which is coming in the glomerulus is having around 300 osmolarity, which is in the proximal tubule having the same, but the substance which is, or the amount, the liquid which is delivered in a loop of Henle is having the osmolarity around 400 osmolarity. The water reabsorption takes place in descending lymph, and the liquid which is delivered into the tip of the loop of Henle, it is around 1200 osmolarity. Then again it gradually start diluting, and which is delivered into the distal convoluted tubule is around 100 osmolarity, and again there is a manipulation for the absorption of water and electrolytes, and around osmolarity of the urine is around 100 osmomolar. So around 100 osmomolar solution is delivered as a urine. So 300 osmomolar is delivered as a glomerular filtration through, whenever it is going through the loop of Henle, it is changing in a different ways, and whenever it is delivered as a urine, how it is taking place. So more detail over here we can see osmolarity, how it is changing. The osmolarity changing is mainly taking place in the loop of Henle. Loop of Henle is making the more important role over here. Now here we can see 300 osmomolar solution is delivered into the descending limb. We have already seen at the tip of it, it is around 1200, and whenever it is going out again, it is a 300 osmomolar, and which is again further converted to 100 osmolar. The descending limb is mainly responsible for more of the water reabsorption, whereas the sodium chloride reabsorption will be taking place by the ascending limb. Here the counter current mechanisms which we are over here, we can see over here the change in osmolarity which is taking place over here. So this is what about the changing in the osmolarity whenever there is the liquid is moving through the loop of Henle. We can see over here descending limb of the nephron reabsorb the water by osmosis. Ascending limb is responsible for sodium chloride, that is electrolyte reabsorption by active transportation, and the water reabsorption takes place by osmosis only. Distal tubules there is a reabsorption of the sodium and electrolyte by active process, water by osmosis. There is a secretion of hydrogen ions in the distal tubule. Potassium is again actively transported by electrochemical attraction, and the collecting ducts also responsible for water reabsorption and osmosis, process of osmosis. So here the osmosis of the fluid which is traveling through is maintained by the different way. Water by the osmosis process, then electrolytes by active transport, some chloride ions by electrochemical attractions, like this way, and some pinocytosis, proteins by pinocytosis mechanism. These are the ways by which the components of urine are secreted and reabsorbed over there. Now ADH is also playing a very important role over here. My friends, after this we will stop this presentation here, and then we will continue as a part 2 in the second part after the ADH. The amount of water which is in the blood will be decreased by ADH. So there is due to that, what happens that the osmotic pressure of the blood is changing, it is increased, and this is perceived by the osmoreceptor which are present in the blood vessels, and this send a signal to the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Then pituitary gland secretes the hormone which is called as ADH. This ADH then act on a distal tubule and collecting ducts, and then this distal tubule become more permeable for the water, and the water absorbed by the osmosis pressure, and urine become more concentrated, and the more amount of water is retained inside the body. So the osmolarity which is previously increased will be decreased. So this is how the antidiuretic hormones are working. The concentrated blood is formed, and which is creating an osmotic pressure, which stimulate the osmoreceptor, which send a signal to the pituitary secrete the ADH hormone work on the collecting ducts and distal tubule, and they absorb more amount of water, and after absorption of water, the urine become concentrated and blood component will become diluted. So this is how the ADH will work. Now my friends, so we will stop here and we will continue in the next slide in the next presentation. Thank you very much.